You're watching Dukascopy TV. I'm Darren McDermott. I have Jean-Marc Falter from the Swiss National Bank in the studio to have a look at the SNB's latest report for Swiss business cycle trends for the third quarter. Welcome today. So first of all, Jean-Marc, can we just have a quick look at this survey? What is it all about?
Okay, the Swiss National Bank is represented in various regions of Switzerland by a so-called delegate for economic relations. And our goal is to keep in touch with companies from different areas of the economy. About the business survey itself, we survey companies on the basis of personal interviews with business leaders and chief financial officers. We select companies based on the industrial structure of each region, and each quarter we survey different companies. Over a year, we interview approximately 1,000 business leaders, and these interviews serve as a basis for reports to the attention to the governing board of the Swiss National Bank.
And in the survey for the third quarter, now we saw an improvement in manufacturing. 50% of companies actually revealed higher sales. However, turnover remained the same at about 40%. So why was this, and what companies showed the most and least improvement, and what was demand actually like?
Yes, indeed. Upturn in manufacturing is indeed quite remarkable, as the growth in this sector has been rather sluggish for the past 6 quarters in Switzerland since the end of 2011. But as you mentioned, there are still discrepancies between industries, and pharmaceutical, precision instrument have reported increasing turnover compared to the previous quarter. On the other hand, food industry, machinery were rather flat. With respect to demand, well, domestic demand is still high. Regarding export, European countries are still subdued. There were some impulses from the US, South America, Russia, and to a lesser extent Asia, which was less dynamic than in the previous quarters.
And the services sector continues to show moderate growth. However, there are concerns over cross-border shopping, and also some businesses said that they are concerned about online shopping. So how does the SNB feel about this?
Yes, cross-border shopping has been a big issue for retailers since August, mid-2011, and a dramatic appreciation of the Swiss franc. Now this phenomenon seems to have stabilized, but we do not observe any trend that customers are coming back to Switzerland. You mentioned online shopping, and it's true that it's been increasingly mentioned by retailers. Often it has become a more pressing issue than cross-border shopping. Of course, online shopping is a form of cross-border shopping, as a lot of online companies operate from abroad. But still, it's a structural change affecting this sector.
And speaking of changes, Jean-Marc, there are many changes coming in terms of the banking sector due to pressure and regulations. Now, what are your views on this, and how do industries feel about it? Because there's so many things happening, including cost-cutting measures by banks.
Yes, it's quite difficult to assess the overall situation of the banking sector in Switzerland. One has to keep in mind that this sector is quite heterogeneous from the point of view of business model, from the point of view of customer base, foreign or domestic, and if foreign, from which countries. So the overall situation is quite difficult to assess, but in the meantime, it's quite obvious that changes are going on and that this sector is facing a lot of uncertainty. As you mentioned, one can observe a lot of cost-cutting efforts going on, and this affects other companies or other industries. A primary example is IT, which used to suffer, but in the third quarter of this year, they did relatively well. But we can find a lot of other examples of companies facing difficulties due to the banking sector, hotel, catering, cleaning companies, etc. And in some regions, the future of the banking sector can have economy-wide impact. And this is the reason why in Geneva or in Ticino, this is one of the main worries, one of the main worries of business leaders.
And looking at the labour market, we have witnessed a slight increase in overall demand for labour. Now, what sort of trends are we seeing in this sector? And of course, what are the main challenges such as recruiting?
Yeah, we observed only little change with respect to the labour market, only a slight increase in the demand for labour. And we still observe large differences between sectors. Some sectors are hiring, typically precision instrument, watching, pharmaceuticals, also in the construction sectors and engineering and architecture. And in other sectors, it's rather flat. But in terms of recruiting, of course, some sectors have difficulties, but overall, it's as time-consuming and as challenging as before. And one aspect which helps companies, it's the situation in the European countries. A lot of firms can only hire, can only find workers abroad, and they receive a lot of applications from European countries, especially Southern European countries. And this is still going on.
And since the last report, uncertainty over future developments has decreased slightly. However, many remain cautious about Europe. Tell us your views.
Yes, it's true that uncertainty has decreased and optimism is also increasing. But overall, businesses remain quite cautious. But it's true that in all sectors, whether it's construction, manufacturing or services, all sectors expect turnover to rise in the next 6 months. But how can we explain this? Probably it's due to the improvements in the Eurozone, but still the situation in Europe remains quite uncertain. And if you look at the debate on the budget debate in the US, one can see that risk can arise elsewhere as well. So the overall situation is quite fragile.
And Jean-Marc, just one last question before we wrap up. How are entrepreneurs feeling about political initiatives in Switzerland?
Yes, it's true that many entrepreneurs feel that Switzerland is also facing its own risk. And you mentioned these political initiatives with respect to labor market issues and sometimes also inheritance taxes. And all this comes in a broader context where often entrepreneurs complain about an increasingly complex administrative burden and things like that. And of course, I will not go into the potential impact of this initiative if they were accepted by the Swiss people. As an SNB representative, I will stay clear from the political debate. But one thing is true, that all these initiatives cause, with business leaders, a feeling of uncertainty. And this may have an impact on macroeconomic variables such as investment. Whether it's already the case remains to be seen, but it concurs to the overall feeling of uncertainty.
Jean-Marc, a pleasure having you in the studio. Thank you very much for coming in and sharing your views.
It's a pleasure, thank you.
And thank you for watching Dúchascalpaí TV today. Now do stay tuned for more economic updates, interviews and Forex analysis. Goodbye for now.